Episode number 95 of People I Know Show. Kurt Carstensen on a road trip with my oldest nephews. Chase Carstensen is the main guest today. Welcome back to the podcast, Chase.
Woo, yeah, thanks for having me back, Kurt.
Somehow we've done two of these and both have been in a car.
Yeah, both have been in the car and both have been right around my birthday.
The last time was on your 16th birthday 2 years ago.
2 years ago, that's right.
You and I and your dad, my brother Chuck, did a Spartan race.
Yeah.
And to capture that experience, we had a conversation together.
Yep.
And in that one, Chuck had a brief cameo. And in this one, my other oldest nephew, AJ Torfin, who's been on the podcast 2 times. If you're watching on the video on YouTube, he's in the back seat with all of our stuff that we've brought most of it and accumulated some things. And pretty soon we're getting home. Right now, driving through northeastern Colorado as we have this conversation. And depending on how long it goes, we might even enter the exciting state of Nebraska.
Yeah, woo, Nebraska.
So Chase, you're going to help me talk about this road trip, this adventure.
All right.
I think we might get into kind of a timeline, but first, if you can pick a highlight or two, things that you will remember the most from this trip, what are they?
I think number one for me was the caves at Craters of the Moon National Monument. I wasn't expecting that at all from Craters of the Moon. We definitely underrated that stop on our trip here, and yeah, I feel like that really surprised me, and that's really fun for me, like crawling through caves. It was like, you're dark, you barely can breathe, but you just keep going. That's fun for me. And then I think the waterfall hike at Glacier National Park, I don't know, that was just a really nice moment. I feel like we had just a lot of fun, took a lot of cool pictures, I felt like, and just being up close to a waterfall, it was just really, really beautiful.
Those, I'd say, would be two of the surprises because, like you said, Craters of the Moon, the reason why we went there is because none of us had been to Idaho, and we thought we got to go do something in Idaho. Idaho does not have national parks, but they had a couple national monuments. That one was like the highest rated or on the best route. We really didn't do our research. It was just like, okay, we're going to Idaho. This is in Idaho. Let's do this thing.
Right.
And yeah, you and AJ at some point, I let you go because you were crawling through a cave, through dripping water in a space that I could have fit. I mean, we all would have fit, but I wasn't dressed for it. AJ wasn't dressed for it.
Yeah.
Not that any of us were dressed for it, but I'm like, okay, you guys, you're young, you do it. Explain a little more about either that cave or what you really liked about it.
Yeah, that was the Boy Scout cave, I believe. There was a bunch of little different caves and caverns, but this one was different because you actually had a way to go all the way through and enter at there was some light at the end of the tunnel or whatever, and you had the ability to crawl your way out as well, which was really cool to just make it all the way through that. So we were going through there and we had terrible lighting because we don't have flashlights. We were just using our flashlight on our cameras as we're taking a video crawling through there and scraping up our arms and our legs and stuff, but it was just a cool experience. And as soon as I saw light at the end of the tunnel, I'm like, yep, we got to do this. There's no way we can't.
That one was one of 4 or 5 caves that we went into, and they all were pretty cool, but I'd say that was I suppose the biggest surprise. You went in there exploring in getting out of it, I saw the sign perfectly explained what would happen in there when you looked at the diagram, but I didn't look at it, didn't think about it.
Right. And
then afterwards, oh yeah, you need to be flat for the middle half of it, and then you emerge on the other side, walking out, which you did. I didn't know where you two went. I probably knew you were trapped in there because I was waiting a while, and suddenly you walk around the corner. I'm like, where'd you come from? Yeah, well,
here's the thing. We didn't know where you went. We got out pretty quick. You went down the other tunnel for the cave, and we were like, did Kurt try to follow us or go back for the GoPro? And we were kind of, or at least I was like, did Kurt try to follow us and get stuck or something? You have a panic attack. I'm I'm getting claustrophobic, getting stuck in this cave or whatever. So I go in 2 times, one in the front, looking, saying Kurt, trying to figure out where you are. And then it's I have in the back of my mind that a feral person take Kurt, and I'm like, come on, that's just a bad projection. Don't think that. I mean,
nobody wants me. No, that will never.
You're fine now, so it's all good. But yeah, so I went in the front entrance, then I came in the back where me and AJ exited, and then eventually you came out. You said you were in the other tunnel. We're like, whew, there we go. But yeah.
And AJ's back there in the video. I don't think that we have with our microphone setups, it's going to be kind of tricky to get good audio from him. So AJ, just hear what we're saying and capture some thoughts that you want to share from time to time, but not all the time. So we'll get to him in a little bit with his perspective on some of these things.
Yeah.
So yeah, the caves, I went into another one, as you said, but I thought I had all kinds of time. I'd go in there, get out. So wait, were you actually out there looking for me when I was in that cave?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I didn't realize that at all.
Yeah.
And in that cave, I hit my head, and that was.
We thought you hit.
Yeah,
the
we
head
had
in the
you.
other cave.
Yeah, we thought you hit your head in the other cave, and like we're knocked out. And I was like,
it
oh,
could happen.
Well,
Yeah.
That's what we thought, and we're like, oh, he could have gone to the GoPro, and then we went around, and Chase crawled back through the cave we were going into.
Yeah.
And then I went back around and went through the other way, and we met like halfway, and we're like, where's Kurt? And then we were like, went back, he's like, oh, he probably went to the car, and then by the time we got back, you were already there standing, waiting for us.
You're like,
What are these guys doing?
And it was easy for me to hit my head. I guess easy in the sense that, like you described, we're using the flashlights on our phone. And in that case, I was pointing down to make sure I stepped properly because
Right.
we're stepping on rocks that are very uneven.
Yep.
And in the meantime, there was like a big rock sticking out of the wall, the only one, and I bonked my head on it, and that wasn't fun. But I was all by myself. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll just keep going and not cry. So yeah, that was cool. So there was other ones there. There was this huge one. I think they called it Indian Tunnel that had a bunch of openings in top. It was very long, not as like tight or dangerous in that way. None of these are that dangerous, but certainly you can get hurt if you're not careful.
Yeah, you got to be careful because there's also ice. I mean, you're like 500 feet under like the ground or whatever, and so you got ice in there too. And sometimes it's a little slippery. You could slip and fall and crack your head or whatever. So yeah, you got to be careful.
And that was Craters of the Moon National Monument in southern Idaho. And by my best recollection of trying to learn how that thing developed, that was a couple thousand years ago. A volcano in that area erupted, and this is like the leftover lava. And the caves, at least in some way, are where the lava would have come out of the ground from back at that time. And it's still there. People can go there, and something might happen again in the future to change it.
Yep.
But there it is, and that was very unique. Of the, I think it was 14 national parks or monuments that we were on.
Yeah.
That was, a lot of them are like unique experiences, but that one was very different than everything else.
Yeah, for sure.
And the other one you mentioned, Glacier National Park, which is in northwestern Montana.
Yeah.
That was the fourth one we went to, and that one's way out of the way.
Yeah.
As we go through the timeline of this, as we go back to kind of the beginning and explain how we did this, I don't know if this was the best way to do it. Certainly with the amount of time we gave ourselves, there weren't many other options to do all the things that we did. But Glacier was like a 7-hour drive from Yellowstone and a 7-hour drive back to the area of Craters of the Moon.
Yeah.
And what we didn't learn, bad research guy, me, all of us, or just kind of coincidence, Glacier, I think it's called Going to the Sun Road. It's one road straight through it, and there's a few other little roads that come in from other parts of the park, but that road, the middle section was closed. Like, you couldn't drive on it.
Yeah.
So we went to the eastern side and had, about 3 or 4 miles of road, maybe a little bit more, to look at the trails from there.
Right.
There wasn't much, but we picked one, and we only really picked it because we finally found a parking spot.
Yeah.
We did this trail walk, as you described, maybe 2 miles each way. And again, with more research, we might have realized this, but at the end of it was a really big, nice waterfall that we got very close to and got some videos and photos with. It was pretty neat.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, let's not count out Bill there. We had this guy named Bill, and he's kind of misleading us through that park. He's like, yeah, stop at this waterfall. I mean, if you want to make the extra hike to see the other one, which was Virginia Falls, I believe, right?
Yeah, that was the second one.
Yeah, Virginia Falls, and it was like, wow, this is the most beautiful waterfall you'd ever see. I mean, like, it's like, I haven't been like Niagara Falls or anything like that, but this was an amazing waterfall, and it was like an option to like go see it, not like you had to. I was like, yeah, you should go and see this, but that was the only one we could see. And just for me, I think it's one of those places I'm gonna have to try to get back to in a couple of years here before like all the glaciers melt and all that stuff, because we barely got to see anything just because of that road was closed. I mean, that's the main thing. We got to see what was that lake St. Mary's? What was that called again, AJ?
The huge lake. I don't remember what it's called.
St. Mary Lake.
Yeah,
Okay.
St. Mary's Lake. Yeah, it was a beautiful lake and stuff, and that was nice to see. A nice sunrise. We were there early in the morning, and yeah, that was one of the ones where we drove through the night to get to as well. So
You mentioned Bill. So Bill is the voice narrator. His name probably isn't. Maybe it's Bill.
we call him Bill.
So one of my friends, and I guess one of the advantages, I post it every day, a bunch of videos or photos to my Instagram and Facebook stories. And very early in the trip, one of my friends saw this and explained something about either the Grand Tetons or Yellowstone, that there's an app called Gypsy, Gypsy, I forget how I'm spelling. Anyhow, you'd find it, very highly rated, and there's a narrator guy who was great, explained things very well. In that case, he might have
Misled us.
well, he could have embellished it more to make sure we went there. We went anyhow,
Right.
but he kind of downplayed
Yeah.
how awesome that waterfall was. But we listened to him a lot in Yellowstone, and as much as we could in Glacier. There's a lot of other places to go. But he always would say we, like we're doing this. He never once said his name, and
Yeah.
it really upset me. So they named him Bill. They named my car Roberto, and I don't know what other names we came up with on this trip, but it's been a very good bonding experience. So that was Glacier. That was our fourth one. Crater of the Moon is our fifth one.
Yep.
Should we kind of walk through from start to finish now? And
Yeah, we can go ahead. We started at Badlands. That was the first stop on our drive, and that was really interesting. It's like you think South Dakota, like what's in South Dakota? You go to Badlands and you're like, wow, this area is like really cool and beautiful, and it's got lots of stuff for me to climb. I like to climb rocks, danger, whatever. I like doing that stuff, but it was amazing. The view, the sun, the pictures. I mean, we had the sun and the moon at like the same time when we were there. And then, yeah, it was just, there was lots of great photos. My favorite photo was me and AJ, like in the middle of the moon. That was beautiful. Looked like we were getting married. So, yeah, that was one of my favorite photos for sure. And then the next stop was Mount Rushmore at night. I think it's almost better to go at night. I don't know. I think it's just me. I mean, there wasn't anything open like the museums to learn the history, but I mean, I went to history class. I learned a little bit about like how it was created and all that stuff. So I didn't mind not going to the museums and stuff like that, but it was really cool to see lit up at night, although for pictures it wasn't totally great, but I liked it, enjoyed it.
how we handled that set the tone for the entire trip, because in my mind, as I envisioned it, we had 7 or so hours to get from the Twin Cities, Minneapolis area to the Badlands area, and that was already kind of late in the evening on a Sunday. Started at 1 p.m. We gained an hour because we got into the mountain time zone.
Right.
But over there, I thought we'd like sleep somewhere and we'd spend a day at the Badlands and Mount Rushmore. But instead, we went to the Badlands in maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours, and then went to Mount Rushmore for like 20 minutes. I don't know, not that long. But we captured a good sense of it. In the Badlands, what you haven't mentioned is we saw quite a bit of wildlife.
Yeah, we did. Holy crap. There was a bison, not even like 10 feet. Like, it's basically, there's a semi right next to us right now. It was basically right next to us. Nobody saw it. I'm like, hey, what the heck is that over there? And like, it's all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, there's a bison. There's a park ranger there. And we're like trying to get out and take a picture. And then he's like, woo, keep going, keep going. I'm like, darn it. But yeah, he was really like cool, but also like, oh my gosh, we almost ran into a bison on the road.
Yeah,
Chase tried to pet the bighorn sheep.
Yeah, that's right. There was a bighorn sheep like walking like right by our car 5 feet away, and I was like, come here, come here. I don't know, whatever.
The sheep did not let you pet it though.
No, but it was chill. Got good videos.
Ran the car.
Yeah, got a good video of him though. I mean,
So that was some of the excitement. I think like the natural beauty is cool, but getting the wildlife, and the wildlife you never really prepared for it unless
right,
all the cars in front of you are stopped and you kind of have an idea that something's going on up there.
right.
But otherwise, out of nowhere, you see some animal, and we have some other animals that we saw that we can get into that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But like that bison or buffalo on the road, this was right near the park exit. I was focused on the park exit. I saw what I thought was like a car coming the other way. No, then I got right next to him. Like, that is a giant buffalo that's like twice the size of my Prius.
Yeah.
And yeah, the park ranger honked his horn, and we scattered. And no damage was done.
No damage, right.
And Mount Rushmore, I was there very briefly with my parents 20 years ago. We didn't even go in, I don't think. We kind of stopped nearby and took a photo. So that was, I know in the future I could go back there and enjoy more time learning more of the history. But if nothing else, passing through and seeing what it looks like lit up at night, that was pretty neat.
Yeah. When you're talking about setting the tone for the trip, that was huge. Like, because there's all these parks we could have spent hours there, hours at every single park exploring all the trails, all the natural beauty that was there. But we were just like, yeah, let's see 1 to 2 things. Let's get a quality visit and just keep moving. And that was kind of our tone for the trip, which we accomplished a lot with that attitude and with that direction that we took.
So we kept driving. We stopped for some pizza. It's somewhere in the Mount Rushmore area.
Oh yeah.
And took off driving from there. I think all of us drove a little bit during that stretch.
Yeah.
And that was overnight.
Yeah.
I was driving at the end after, warning for anyone driving through Wyoming.
Yes.
Get gas every chance you get or something. Like we found a gas station when, if we didn't find this one, I'm pretty sure by the next one we would have been out of gas. And in part, maybe it's my fault for not making sure the tank was full, but we drove a long ways between gas stations.
Yeah.
This is with a Prius.
This is on this trip. We're gonna finish at about 4,950 miles. It looks like on one trip. On this trip.
Just round up to 5,000.
Well, I would like it to. Do I want it to be a? Yeah, I'd like it. We should just drive around in circles so we get to 5,000. So far for the trip, even with a lot of freeway driving, a lot of mountain driving, the Prius, it's underperforming my normal, but it's 48.5 miles per gallon through all this. So
Good job, Roberto.
We're doing it.
Yeah.
Well, Roberto has not made it through very clear yet. He did sustain a little damage on the windshield early in the trip.
Oh, yeah.
And the damage was a rock propelled at the car with a truck that should have had mud flats, but it didn't, whatever. But the crack started just as a smack in the window, just a little smack. And it's grown progressively each day throughout the whole window. And it's about even with Kurt's eyes on the driver's side window. It started over on Chase's side, so it's just gone over.
So what I'm
interesting.
going to do with the video for this conversation is we took so many photos. I'll plug in some photos as we're talking about this, some of these things. So if you're listening right now on the audio version of the podcast, this is a good reason to go to the People I Know Show YouTube channel or click on the link and go. And I will take a photo of. I have a beginning photo of the crack and I'll have an end photo of the crack.
Yeah.
It's grown quite a bit, but my dad, Wayne, said, don't worry, you'll be fine, deal with it when you get home, and it looks like he's right. The crack is growing, but it really even isn't in my view very much. I mean, it is more than it used to be. And it's something my insurance said I'm covered on it, so initially I was kind of really like bummed, like, does it cost me like $500? We had just gotten into South Dakota, and I was like, oh boy, this will be an expensive trip if I start breaking down my car, but nope. State Farm says you're good, so good news there.
Thank God for State Farm. Yeah.
So to finish that, I was driving the last stage. I think we arrived at the Grand Teton National Park in west central Wyoming around 7 a.m. It would have been a Monday morning, and we kind of got ourselves like mentally prepared and freshened up, and then because we were doing a hike.
Yeah.
This was AJ's research. Found a hike, his best hike, or the most unknown hike of Grand Tetons.
Yeah.
And that one, I believe it ended up being, was it 8 miles round trip, 3,500 feet of elevation change, or 2,500? No, it was 3,500 calories, 2,500 elevation, something. I don't know. My app told me these things. It took us 6 hours, not counting we stayed for like an hour. But Chase, you're the leader in the hikes. I mean, AJ did the research, but you keep the pace. we're doing our best to keep up with you. Without us, you would like do 5 hikes in a day without us probably, but
Yeah, maybe, I know.
maybe.
I mean, the Grand Tetons one was difficult, especially, I mean, we all were staying up through the night, taking shifts, driving. I mean, I think I drove almost like 4 hours, and it was like Deer Valley in Wyoming.
Oh,
like
boy.
every 10 miles, you see it like a deer, like literally 2 feet from you off the side of the road. You're like, oh my gosh, is it gonna run? Is it gonna jump? I don't know. And so like that was like keeping me on edge. I was scared to drive like the whole time.
But they tend to hang by the side
Yeah.
of the road.
Yeah,
They're
they
not running
just-
every
yeah.
once in a while. It's only 2 or 3 times maybe
Right.
the entire trip.
Right.
One darted across in front of us. For the most part, they're just eating grass on the side of the road.
And there's actually, we ran to a national forest, like deer crossing, but there's 2 huge elk, like right on the side of the road. We're like, oh my gosh, like huge elk. I'm going 25, like around the curve, and all of a sudden, boom, 2 huge elk. I'm like, oh my gosh. So it's just really, you got to be on point when you're driving at night for sure. And then I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm getting tired. I think AJ took a shift for 2 hours then. That was like windy. Like there was like wind gusts blowing the car all over creation. Like, I don't know what's happening. But AJ drove through that, and then Kurt drove the last stretch. Drove through the last stretch to get us to Grand Tetons, and then so we're all running on like 0 sleep, like to do like the most strenuous hike on this entire trip.
I think I had the most sleep at about like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And for me, it's my car, and I feel so responsible for the 2 of you. Yes, you're adults now, but I would hate the idea of our trip being derailed by us hitting some animal,
Right.
or like, it was really hard for me to sleep in the car. It's
With all
been.
the deer.
Yeah,
It's-
that was
yeah,
hard for me
it's,
too. I was like, I want to stay up, and I got energy to do it, obviously. I mean,
Anyways, back to the Tetons.
yeah, the Teton hike. So we start off, and it's like really flat. I'm like, go fast. We like, this is fun. Like, this is easy. We're gonna have a good time. And then there's all of a sudden there's just a shift. Like, I don't know where it's at, but probably like 2.5 miles or 3 miles. We're like, yep, my calves are on fire right now, and I don't know if we're like how much farther I can go. I mean, I felt like the pace was fine. I mean, it was nice to sometimes take a breath and relax and take some photos too. It's really scenic, especially when you climbed in elevation. We got to see just the different lakes, different nature and stuff like that. It was really beautiful.
I think out of all the hikes we had, that really had all the different elements in the hike. So it was very progressive. It started
Right.
just straight walking, just through the woods. Then you started to get a little more elevation. Then the elevation increased, and we went into switchbacks. Where if you don't know what a switchback is, because we didn't know before this trip, but now we know, it's when you go back and forth up the mountainside, keep increasing in elevation.
Yep.
And those that's when it started to get more strenuous. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that's like pretty intense. And we finally got up to the point, and I'm sure Chase will take it off right here, is when we got to the point where it was Delta Lake or the other one.
Yeah.
And one thought, you had done your research, like this is the one to do, but something we'd kind of forgotten about is in parts of some of these states, cell phone service is not good, but on national parks, almost nowhere, because it's just, people don't live there. There's no businesses. There's
Yeah.
no demand in that way to have good cell service. There just isn't. So we were unsure of where to go at a certain point, and I don't know, you figured it out. And actually, we ran into a guy that helped point us in the direction
Right.
of this hike that isn't labeled, that you found on the internet, that was like this great hike with this great ending.
Yeah.
And thankfully, we were pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, so there was a fork in the road, basically, and one was to the Delta Lake side, we figured out, and one was just up the mountain more to see like just some lake or something, I don't know, something not as cool. But I knew going into the hike that this hike was off, it was, I don't know the word, but it was off trail. The trail was not, it wasn't an official trail, so it wasn't maintained by the park ranger. So if a tree log fell down on the trail, you'd have to climb over it. They're not going to move it out of the way. If rocks fell, there'd be more rocks, and you'd have to go over the rocks, something like that.
Yeah, that was great explanation of like the progression of the trail. I mean, that it's fun for me to have progressions like that, especially because it gets harder and harder as you go up, and there's lots of different things. So yeah, we get to this fork in the road, and like left, you keep going up the switchbacks up to this other lake and whatever. But then if you go right towards Delta Lake, you got to go down the steps over like some tree branches, and then now it starts getting hard. You got to make sure you put your feet in the right place, otherwise you're slipping and sliding. I remember I was looking back, AJ and Kurt were like using the stakes or what are those poles, the poles that you had? Trekking poles. You have trekking poles, and you're tapping around, making sure you're not going to slip and fall. And I'm just like going up and down, like trying to make sure. And then we get to the spot, like, oh my gosh, there's like a rock slide, like tons of boulders. And like, I was like waiting for the boulders. AJ was like, there's boulders on this trail, trust me. I'm like, okay, where are the boulders? And I'm like,
there's basically a whole mountainside of giant rocks.
Yeah, whole mountainside.
And I knew going into it that there was going to be bouldering, and that was going to be the hardest part. So by the time we got up to it, I knew going into it that it wouldn't get hard until we got to the boulders. And it was very diminishing to know by the time we got to the boulders how much we actually did. I was like, holy shit, we're not even to the hard part yet.
Yeah, right.
And so I knew when we got there, it's just a mountainside of boulders, just going up for probably a quarter of a mile, just giant rocks.
Right.
And we had to climb over.
Yeah, this is the hardest hike I've ever done. I think with either one or both of you a couple times. I've done Camelback Mountain in the Phoenix area, Scottsdale.
Yeah.
I've done a pretty easy mountain somewhere near Las Vegas with my friend Zach. Besides that, I don't know that I'd done any until this one, and it was the hardest one I've done, maybe even before we started getting over the boulders, because I was so exhausted. It was already like 2.5 hours into it, 3 hours into it, and then we had to maneuver through the rocks, and at the final stretch going like a very steep climb with some loose dirt and having to be very careful not to slip.
Yeah. And for me, when the trail's getting harder, I'm like, that's when I get more excited, because I'm like, yep, the reward's coming, like this is the time to push. So I'm like flying up and down the rocks, and current age are like, Chase, wait, we don't know where we're going. And I'm like, yep, you're right. So I had to wait for them. We all figure it out, go up the trail again, and then it's like, all of a sudden it's like we were going kind of switchback. All of a sudden it's just straight, you gotta bear claw with your hands and really dig in with your feet to get up some of these points, because there's slippery rock, it's slippery dirt, you slip and fall if you're not careful, and it's unmaintained, so you got to be careful. And we're going up, this is the hard part. And then I get up to the clearing, I'm waiting for AJ and Kurt, and all of a sudden there's snow. There's literally snow, where we're at that level. And so I'm like, oh, I'm gonna throw a snowball. So I got a snowball, threw it at Kurt, didn't hit him, whatever.
You threw more than one snowball at me.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. I mean, I was like, there's snow in the mountain in the middle of June. This is crazy. And
I remember before we started the hike, we saw the snow and just dismissed the fact that we'd ever go up that high, and then we'd reach the snow. It's like, oh wow.
Yeah, we're in snow-capped mountains, and so we're up there. We get to this beautiful lake. It's just pristine, tranquil lake. It's calm. There's some people there. Nobody's in the water at all. Just relaxing, it's a beach.
It's really perfect, because when you were walking up, you'd walk up just right past the hardest part of the climb, I'd say, right?
Yeah.
It's just you're basically hands and feet crawling up the side of the dirt, rocky trail, and you just basically go under a branch, and there's a big boulder, and you basically walk around, and you see the view as soon as you come around the corner. You see the view of the Glacier runoff lake, and the biggest Teton or whatever in the background.
Yeah, Grand Teton.
Perfect view. Kurt will have pictures of it.
Yeah, it was. I think for me, that was the most beautiful view on the trip. I don't know if you guys agree, but for me, that was just the most beautiful, most pristine, most picturesque view we saw the whole time. That as soon as you enter on that view right there, it's awestruck. I was just my jaw dropped, and just oh my gosh, we're here in a mountain, and then there's this beautiful glacier runoff lake. So.
And for me, I guess that's another one of the big surprises. I knew that there was a lake somewhere, but I had no comprehension of what it would look like, and it couldn't have been more picturesque.
I mean, for me, I don't know, it was a teal. AJ, you want to chime in? What color, would you describe it?
A lot. I kind of came up with it when we were there. It was an emerald kind of looking lake, and it's the glacier runoff, and it's freezing cold. I'm sure Chase will go into that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a freezing cold lake, and I'll tell you how we got into that a little bit later. But I want to focus on the color, because it was just you don't see lakes this clear, but with this beautiful color. It's bold, but it's like calming, and it's just pretty. It's got like, it's just so unique just how this lake is colored. Like if you like this stuff, if you like hiking, like making the trips and stuff like that, go see this lake. It's beautiful. I think it's it's like a bucket list, like one of the things that you want to see before you're gone. Like that's just my opinion on it.
So that's Delta Lake at Grand Tetons. It's hard to find, so you're gonna have to Google it or ask us.
Google it.
But when we got up there people were hanging near the shore, maybe like 50 people scattered around the lake, something like that.
Right.
And I think off in the distance is a couple people going in the water. But up until then, we really hadn't seen much of that. And then Chase, we as it happens occasionally, we lose Chase for a little bit. He's off by himself. He was up somewhere in the rocks changing into his swim trunks, and he came back.
Yeah, so I came back with my swim trunks because I'm like, I went on this long hike, this strenuous hike. I'm tired. I want to take a swim, want to cool off and stuff. And so I'm like, whew, like let's take a dip. And then I get in and it's like, ooh, that's a little cold. I'm walking through it. I get to this rock that's out there. And I'm like, whew, like that wasn't too bad. Like walking through it is cool, but I was like, I didn't fully experience it yet. So I'm just sitting on this rock. I'm like trying to get AJ to come out. He's getting ready. He's getting his GoPro and stuff ready and stuff like that. And then Kurt's like, all right, Chase, I'm going to take a video of you. I'm like, what is he wanting me to do on this video? In my head, I'm like, am I supposed to jump in? And so he's like, 5, 4, 3, 2. I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do. So I'm just like looking in. I'm like, it looks fine. I'm going to jump in. All of a sudden I jump. Everyone's like, oh shit, what are you doing? Like, and so I jump in. I'm like, whew, gets out. Like all of a sudden, like my sinuses clear up. It was so cold. It smacks you in your face. And I was just like, whew, like surprised me, shocked me. Like, oh, like this is freezing. And then so I swim out. I'm like, scream like, woo! Like, and I was like, whoa, that's nippy, man. Because like I'm just shivering that like as soon as I get out of the water. And I was like, oh my gosh, like the guy like actually just jumped in. And I'm like chilling. I'm like, whew, you know, I feel good. I'm like, dang, I'm like, I just did that. Nobody else is doing that. Like I just jumped in, like no problem. So I'm just relaxing there. And then everybody else is like, oh, like maybe we should do it. And it was really cool.
Yeah, we saw probably 10 other people. AJ ended up doing it too. I didn't. I didn't come prepared to go in the water. Plus, my swimming isn't so good. So those are my excuses this time. But seeing you do it makes me realize that I'll be prepared for the next opportunity. Then I'll have to do it.
Yeah. Chase was just so influential. I was trying to get over there. The rocks on the way were like very sharp, so you had to be very careful. And the water was like clear, but it was very like emeraldy, and like you couldn't really see in it, so you couldn't see the rocks on the bottom.
Right.
So you got to feel it out, and it was kind of hard to get there. And I got my GoPro ready. By the time I was there, this couple was already ready to jump in, and they were like kind of like hesitant, and they're like, "Oh, should we do this?" And Chase was like, "Go for it, go for it!"
Yeah, I'm like,
they end up jumping in right before I do.
Yeah.
And then by the time they jumped in and we're done and we're all heading out, like 50 people are starting.
Oh yeah. Like, yeah, there's like, I was like, oh, join the 1% club. I'm like, nobody else is doing this. Join the 1% club, and then everybody's doing it. It kind of ruins it, but it's like, hey, you know what? I got people to like jump in this cold lake. Now it's a thing there.
The plan initially was to jump in the lake, is because I saw that was an actual thing. By the time we got there, it was kind of like, okay, we're gonna go jump in the lake, but it was cold. So it was kind of like, should we jump in the lake? I don't know.
Yeah, you got a really good video on GoPro, I think, of that. Like, it was just perfect timing. Like, we get up and then you turn around and then there's the view. Like, you're in the lake. I mean, it's one of those. Just, I'm never gonna forget that experience. I'm gonna talk about it like with my kids. I'm gonna take my kids there. I'm gonna make them jump in the lake. I'm gonna push them in if they don't want to go. I don't care.
Yikes!
I mean, you just got to do some of that stuff. You got to go for it.
Oh my! So Chase mentioned it. He mentioned the feeling when he went into the water. That was like it's just like that therapy. It was very therapeutic.
Yeah, therapeutic.
We went in and we were obviously just got done with like a 3.5 hour hike, whatever it was. It was very strenuous. We're all dirty, caked in like dirt, snow, rock, cut up, whatever.
Yeah.
And just jumping in automatically, you just feel so
rejuvenated.
Rejuvenated. It was so therapeutic, and I felt I probably have not felt better in like a split-second time span of like not feeling good or not. It wasn't not feeling good. I obviously just accomplished, but I was worn down to like feeling like, oh my god, I just woke up from the best sleep of my life.
Yeah. This trip was one of those trips that I think it's going to be one of those where it's more times than I've had in my life so far where it's like I feel alive doing this. And it's like when you jump into that lake, you're like, I feel alive. It's like an awakening within your spirit where it's like you unleash the beast or something like that. I don't know if like you guys felt the similar energy, but for me, I was doing all sorts of stuff where it's like I feel alive, and that was kind of just like I didn't really just talking about right now. It's like that was my thing. That was my mindset. It's like I want to feel alive and awake, like I'm living, like I'm doing stuff.
And that's the thing about traveling. It gets us out of our routine. Like I don't look at myself as a hiker or a mountain climber. But we're out here, we're seeing national parks, this is a thing you can do. I'm with you, and you want to do that, and you want to do that. Like, it wouldn't have been my idea to climb these mountains, but I'm also not going to not go with you. So right. it forces me into different situations, and I think that's just the idea. You get to somewhere new, you're with some people that have some different ambitions, and the correct answer almost always should be yes, just, okay, someone wants to do it. Unless you've done it before and hate it, maybe, then say no and do something else. Yeah. But I'd never climbed that mountain before. Yeah. I'd never gone on an 8-mile hike before. And I didn't have I had nothing else going on for 10 days. So there's no reason not to go if I'm physically capable of doing it. And I proved to myself that I am physically capable of doing that. Mm-hmm. I didn't jump in the water. I put my feet in the water, and that was enough for me in that moment. But that's certainly a lasting memory of, okay, I did that. That's the toughest hike I've ever done. I could do something tougher, but now I've raised my average. I set a new baseline for what I'm capable of doing, and I think so. That was about 6 hours. I bet it was actually 3.5 hours up and 2.5 back, something like that.
Yep.
And so let's get to the going down the mountain. Pretty standard, just one foot in front of the other for the most part. Once we got back to the main trail, going down the switchbacks is easier. It just takes a long time because it was so many miles. Right. But at a certain point, we found a little surprise.
Yeah, I want to get into that. So we're walking down the mountain again, going down the switchbacks, and there's like a rustling in the bushes. Kurt's like literally 6 feet away from this, 10 feet, 7 feet, whatever it is. And I'm like, Kurt, what is that? Like, stop. Like, there's an animal right by you. And like, we're waiting. I'm like, what is that? And it jumps out, and it's a baby cub. It's like a grizzly cub or like a brown bear cub.
One of the two. We didn't do a DNA test.
Like, oh my gosh. Yeah, it's a bear. It's a bear cub. Like, who cares? It's a bear cub. And I'm like, okay, Kurt's running back here. AJ gets the bear spray out of my pack. He gives me the bear spray. I'm like, I'm just watching this thing. Everybody's got their phones out taking videos. And like, we see some people coming up behind us. They come up behind us like, there's a baby bear.
So I went back. I'm like, I don't want to alarm you, or maybe I should alarm you. There's a bear cub ahead of us, and we have no idea if there's a mother bear around.
Right, because that's the danger part. When the mama comes around, she's going to protect that thing and just going to go like maul you or whatever she has to do. So I got the bear spray. I'm ready. I'm looking around, like head on a swivel. I'm like, where is this mama bear? Because I'm at the front. I'm getting eaten first. If this is what's going to happen, I'll die, whatever. And that's just going. There's a million thoughts going through my head right now. I'm like, there's a baby bear on this trail.
The mother bear is not going to get all of us. Maybe with enough of us, she'll run away herself. Who knows? But the bear cub began to just kind of walk forward on the trail. But it's walking on the trail, and this trail has miles to go. Who knows when it's going to leave our area?
Yeah.
Chase had a good analogy of it. Looked like Winnie the Pooh.
Oh yeah, it looked like
wandering.
Yeah, just like I want to eat my honey. Ooh, like, Piglet, where are you? Like, you know, it was just like
care in the world.
Yeah, it's just having a good time. It was such a cute little bear, but like if you see the mother, then you're like, that bear was a trap. Now we're all dead or whatever. You know, like it was just it was crazy to just see that so close in nature. You don't get those experiences often. So I mean, that's just one of the things I really appreciate about Grand Teton is just going there and just seeing just nature and wild. It's just like it's so pure and like there's nothing like harming anything. It's just like you just go and you get to see animals in their like natural state, which is really cool.
So we wrap up that hike. We get down. We're filthy. And to this point, we had left on Sunday afternoon from Minnesota, and this was Monday in the evening. And me being me on this trip and not wanting to plan too much to force us to into one spot, we didn't have a place to stay yet.
Right.
And we were near Grand Tetons is closest to Jackson, Wyoming, and Jackson Hole, Wyoming is like a slightly different place, but it's all very close, as best as I can understand. We drove to Jackson. I ended up getting a hotel that was outrageously priced, but less outrageously priced than all the other ones.
That was a hostel, right?
It used to be a hostel, and I think they kind of transitioned to being more like a hotel, but it really felt like a hostel because we all had single beds.
Yeah.
But we had our own private room.
Yeah.
So when we stayed there, that was, I think, Teton Village. We had a meal in Jackson, and this city, I don't know what it's like most of the year, but it seems to be just one of these happening resort towns.
Yeah.
Not very big, but a lot of restaurants, a lot of people around.
Yeah.
I think they had like some kind of 1800s reenactment going on down the street. We didn't see it, but it seemed like a cool place to go.
Right.
Be prepared to spend more money than maybe you'd want to on a given day, but go there and check it out.
Yeah.
So we stayed at Teton Village, and this ended up being the trend. We didn't, 3 of the nights, we didn't stay at a hotel. We ended up like driving through the night. But the days that we did stay, we slept, like we were already tired, so we kind of slept as much as we could. And that day, that was, Chase, that was your 18th birthday on the Tuesday morning. And you seemed to not be in a hurry to go to bed, so I'm like, all right, we'll just sleep in. We got to Yellowstone Park at like noon. Not a great idea. I'd probably get there early. We, using Bill, our guidance, our voice on this Gypsy app, we went through about half of the park in about 8 hours. They say 2-day minimum to really do it, and I understand now it probably does take you 2 days. But from there, I don't think we'll spend a lot of time on it. There's some neat sights, lots of geysers. We saw Old Faithful. Make sure you're not like standing in the wind so you can get a better view of it. But it's a cool place.
It's a quality.
Like 20 miles away or whatever Grand Tetons and Yellowstone are away from each other, 2 totally different national park experiences. Tetons is very much more wilderness, and obviously we took more of a challenge on that hike, but it was much more wildernessy, where Yellowstone was a lot more touristy, lots of photos, lots of vines, lots of people, where it was just such a different kind of vibe that they each had.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, if you're going to Tetons or most of these, you're going there with your backpacks and water and ready to really put in some work. Yellowstone, it can be the lazy person's national park. You just go stop to stop and take pictures, which is okay. We did some of that too, but it's definitely, it draws more people because it has that ability to just park your car and walk 20 feet and take pictures.
Right. I mean, it was a quality experience though. I mean, for me, I just like the geological factors of it was just so unique, and seeing how all that stuff works and how we have that in America. It's like, you never think like, oh, America's got all this stuff, and it's like, oh my gosh, we have like one of the most unique places on the planet, and people are coming all over to see this place. And like, what do they say, like 3 million people annually visit there? It's crazy.
And these parks, the ones that we went to, they're all in the middle of nowhere, the part of the country that most people, unless you're like there, you don't really think about it. Like, what would anyone do in Wyoming or Montana or Idaho or Utah? It's like, oh, all these things, these are really, really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, I think maybe one thing we could do is like recap all the unique features of all these parks and stuff at the end, just to really like embrace that, because there were just every place we went seemed to like have a little bit there, a little bit here. This is what made that unique. This is what made that cool. And so
it's definitely unique for a while, because day one it was, and on the Sunday we went to Badlands and Mount Rushmore. Day 2, Grand Tetons on a Monday. Your birthday on the Tuesday, we went to Yellowstone. And from there, we drove overnight to Glacier, which we've already talked about. Saw a bit of the park, and but to see the other side of the park would have taken a 6-hour drive. It just, the timing wasn't there for us. So we spent the least amount of time there of the parks that we really wanted to see. And then we moved on, drove down to Idaho, stayed in Pocatello, Idaho. I think we had a dinner in Idaho Falls in this cool like arcade bar restaurant in the warehouse district or something.
It was pretty cool.
That was pretty neat. Stayed in Pocatello in an Airbnb. Nice place. Went to
nice.
Craters of the Moon, as we described. And then even from there, at that point, the way we're doing this trip, the thought was, okay, do we go to National Park the next day, or do we make a stopover and do a day in the city in Salt Lake City? And you two are researching. I think you each found a couple things that you would do, but nothing that really made you want to do that. So we ended up deciding to drive through the night again. And that wasn't even the plan until we were halfway there. It's like, okay, we're just going to keep going. Drive through the night down to Zion National Park. And even with that, I could tell as we were having these conversations, and I'd say about 98 to 99% of the time we all got along. There's a few moments I can remember where I think maybe we're all at fault to some degree in some of these moments, but for the most part we got along well. But that was one where I could tell AJ and I were like, do we really want to get to Zion at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the morning and do this hike? It would just be easier to skip it. To me, using like telepathy. I felt like we had the same thoughts, but Chase wanted to do it, and I wasn't. This is your trip, and each of your trips, so I wanted each of you to get what you wanted. So you seemed to want to go, so I was not going to dissuade you. We were going.
I mean, honestly, this is probably it was the right thing to do. It was a very good experience, but it was my fault. I picked my own poison because I told Chase about this national, where he told me, like, I told him about the hike, and he wanted to do the hike so badly.
Yeah.
And then that was probably my fault to do it. Then he was like, oh my God, we got to do it though. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Then he ended up wanting to do it, and he drove a lot of the way too, so he put that effort in, obviously, and did a very good job there.
Like Yellowstone, just a ton of people at Yellowstone. Talking with my friend Zach again, who lives in Las Vegas and has done a lot of hiking, he said a few years ago he did this Angel's Landing hike at Zion National Park, and he was literally the only person out there. I don't know what time of the year it was exactly, but now, like, we pulled into the park at 4 a.m. 4:30. There was already people like parking, getting out of their cars, like, what's going on here? We parked, and I'm desperate for sleep because I didn't sleep. I drove until I couldn't drive anymore, and then Chase drove, and he got us there perfectly safely, but I still stayed up, like, too afraid to fall asleep again because I don't want something bad to happen. It's just really hard to be in that situation.
I get it. It's like you gotta be aware.
But then we got there, and I'm desperately trying to get some sleep, kind of like at Glacier. I drove all night that night, and I wanted sleep when we did that hike. But at Zion, it was so hard to even nap in the car, which isn't the most comfortable thing because people were parking constantly and slamming the doors and getting out. There was not a good time to find a place to sleep in the car. I don't know if there's any place busier in the state of Utah at that hour.
And then, so this was another hike, like I said, that I researched, just like the Delta Lake one, and I researched some at Glacier National Park, but it didn't work out because the road was closed. But again, I researched this one, and this, and we'll get more into this hike was supposed to be one of the scariest hikes in America itself. And I think we'll get into this more as we keep talking about it, but that Delta Lake experience and just kind of what we've been doing on this whole trip really raised our average in our hiking. So this scariest hike wasn't as scary as it was for us as it could have been for other people because of our experience already.
Yeah, I want to get into that because I was amped. Age is this is one of the most dangerous hikes in America, and me, I'm yep, we got to do this. We got to do this right now. I'm amped. I love this stuff. So I'm amped. I'm wired. I'm driving through the night. I'm not even yawning. I literally yawned once, and that was when Kurt was driving, and I'm so wired. I'm literally wide awake driving at 3 a.m. or whatever, and just I couldn't even fall asleep, so I just stay up. I get up, I have to go to the bathroom. Those two are still sleeping or whatever, trying to get some sleep. And so I go there, I'm going in the bathroom, I see the line starting to form, and this is at 5:30, 6 o'clock or something, and I'm wow, there's a little bit of a line. So I'm hey guys,
a line for the shuttle. A line
for the shuttle.
You can't really park close to most of these hikes, so you get on a shuttle, they drop you off, and then you go from there.
Yeah, you got to get in the line to go in the shuttle, and then I go in there. I'm guys, we'll start getting ready, and then the line keeps on forming, getting bigger, and then I'm I'm ready to go. I'm amped for this hike, so I go and get in line. They get ready, and that was a huge benefit. Because
I wanted to sleep so bad.
You still could have. You probably could have gotten an extra hour or two almost for how long I waited in that line. But it ended up being worth it getting in the line. We finally get on the shuttle and stuff, and we drove up to the hike and we start going on it, and
that's the thing. I was so tired, but you get up and get moving a little bit. The sun's coming out, and then suddenly you're going on this hike. I'm waking up. I'm not tired anymore.
Yeah, you get adrenaline going through your system.
This hike was different from the Delta Lake, and I like to compare them because they were two totally different hikes. And this Angel's Landing was so built up to be this big thing. And if I could compare it to anything, I'd say that the Angel's Landing skipped a lot of the walking and stuff, and kind of went straight to the switchbacks that Delta Lake had.
Right. Yep.
It was a little steeper, not too much though,
Yeah.
compared to the Delta Lake.
Yeah.
But it basically just skipped a lot of the buildup and a lot of the endurance kind of thing.
And the reason I think it seemed easier for us is we had just done Delta Lake and that was challenging, but this was almost entirely paved.
Yeah.
They have like sidewalks
Very
up,
nice
up
paved.
most of the first part of the trail, and then when you get to the scary parts, which certainly visibly
Yeah, we'll get
are
into
scary, they have rails up there and chains, so it really they make it easy on people, I would say.
Yeah, I think one of the things is I think those stuff like made it easier. I don't know when they added that on. Maybe we should research that because I don't know, because it used to be more dangerous and it probably didn't have that sort of stuff. But yeah, going up there, I'm feeling the calf burn, but I'm so amped to get up there. I'm excited. I'm like, people fall off these rocks and die sometimes, so I'm like, yeah, we need to get up there and do this. I don't know. That's just me. And so we're just hiking up there. There's some pretty cool pictures that we get up there. I already took my shirt off. I'm getting so hot up there. It was like, Utah, it's like sun burning down. I'm like, all right, we're just gonna go. And yeah, we get up there and we finally get up there, and there's it's kind of like, I feel like there's checkpoints. Like first you start up, you get up, and then that's level 1. Level 2 you get through the switchbacks. Level 3, you go through you have to be quiet in a certain part because there's wildlife, and there's it's actually an echo valley. If you were to shout, it echo for miles. And then next level is another short switchback. You're kind of just looping around real quick up there, and then you finally get to the base of where you start the summit on Angel's Landing, and then we see a bunch of people, and we see some of them who looked out the edge and nope, I can't do it. They got afraid of heights, and you look down, and it's there's a cliff drop for sure. You see it, wow, we just hiked that far up in pretty good time. So, I mean, I get it. For me, I'm yep, let's go. This is go time. We're at the ceiling right now. There's a cliff edge. You can jump off. I mean, I'm not gonna jump off. I'm not prepared, but
And to reiterate it more, so the first half is a lot of switchbacks, just kind of going up the mountain, and then you get to the mountain's kind of like this. It just goes up like this, and for all of our video viewers, it's like this. So to get up to this part right here was the first half.
Right.
And then that's just switchbacks on trails, paved paths, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Then what he's talking about is right before the summit. The summit part is chain. There's chains to hang on to. Is at some points it's literally very narrow. I equivalent it to about a sidewalk, depending on how big the sidewalk to half the sidewalk most of the time.
Right.
Was you between the cliff.
Right.
And that was the part where I can see why it's called one of the scariest hikes in America.
Right.
But it was not very strenuous, I would say.
No,
Yeah.
and there were so many people that you'd have to wait every 5 minutes or so. You'd wait for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes
Yeah.
as people, because it's like driving on road construction. They have to close one lane of the highway. There's not enough space for people to go both directions at the same time.
Yeah.
And
right.
I would say if you really wanted to do this hike and not have a lot of people, you do have to go at 4:30
Super early in the morning. Yep.
And-
Or maybe in the spring or fall, but that's
Yeah.
that could be
I
the time
mean-
where it gets icy and slippery, and I guess that's
Is
where
more
some
dangerous.
people.
But
yeah.
I would say the people that were lining up at about 4:30 in the morning to get on the shuttle, they knew what they were doing.
Yep.
They knew that they had to get there. And if you're on that first shuttle bus, there's no one ahead of you.
Yep.
And so that's the fun part there. But
For sure.
anyways, we had a great time too, and we'll keep going and talk about how we got up there.
Yeah, so I took a video the whole time because I'm I got to capture the most dangerous hike in America with one hand, of course. So I'm literally doing this. I never, AJ had the GoPro. I never touched the chain. My goal was I'm going to do this thing without touching the chain, and I didn't. Unless I was showing people, here's the chain that I'm not going to use in the
And so,
video.
yeah, the chain, to explain it, they put a chain almost everywhere in the last part of the hike.
Yeah.
As a way, it really makes this dangerous seeming thing be not that dangerous as long as
Right.
you're capable of holding onto a chain.
Right.
But you didn't use the chain
Right.
at all, somehow.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just I didn't think it was
While
that dangerous.
holding your phone, taking video in the other hand.
Yeah, I was just looking around. I'm here's the cliff. Look at this. Look at that. I mean, I'm this is fine. I'm not even scared at all. I mean, there's probably a little margin for error for me. I mean, with no chain to hold on to or whatever. I mean, But I'm like fine with that. Like I'm comfortable. Like that's an area where I'm comfortable in, where a lot of people are not as comfortable or not comfortable at all doing that. Like in the heights, like just like kind of sandy rock. Like you can slip. I slipped a few times, but I caught myself and it's fine. It was like that's all sort of the parts of the fun and going up different ways, trying to show people like here's like this view, like trying to just get people even to smile on camera. Everybody was like looking like death, like coming down. They're like like this is like terrible. Like I'm like hot and sweaty from the hike, and I'm like, come on, this is fun. Smile.
When we were coming down, we were all happy.
Yeah.
But people coming down, there's a pretty low percentage of people that were like really excited and happy because once you make it up there, that's like, okay, we did it. The easy part's coming down. But that one visually you see down the whole time. Like, oh, this is more intimidating going down.
Yeah,
but
it is a little bit.
It really wasn't, I guess, for any of us that scary.
Yeah, I mean, that Grand Teton hike, it just like you just kind of boost your confidence. You're like, yeah, we already did like a super hard hike. I mean, like this is like I don't know, like
it's a paved trail.
Yeah, it's a paved trail. It makes us like feel easy. I mean, for us, I feel like that's a confidence booster.
Even if you don't use the chain, the fact that the chain is there just takes 95% of the fear away.
Oh yeah.
For me at least, and I use the chain sometimes. I didn't use the chain a lot, but it was just the fact that while I was walking up, I saw the side of the cliff, I saw the drop off. I was like, oh wow, okay, that's there. And then I looked over and there's just a big, hulky chain. And it just really reassured me, like, wow, okay, there's this chain and there's all these people. It's like, what really could go wrong? Honestly?
Yeah, right. I mean, and then you get up there, it's a pretty view. I mean, you get to see like down the canyon, down the valley, or whatever you want to call it, and it's nice. We captured some photos on camera. Me and AJ went down a little bit, try to get to the cliff edge, see that view and stuff like that. Because, I mean, that's just kind of like the pictures I like to capture. So it's like I'm hanging off the cliff. Like this is where I'm at.
It was pretty cool because me and Chase saw there was what is it called? Like belay, like bolted into the rocks.
Oh yeah.
You like tie your rope.
Yeah.
To go down further, and you could tell people did that and go down and they kind of rock climb there. And I thought that was pretty interesting. Like, wow, we're literally at the base is where people like rock climb.
Yeah.
Off the path.
You get to the top of Angel's Landing, and there's probably, I don't know, 20 to 50 people up there at any given moment.
Yeah.
And then the two of you kind of went down again. You get up to the top, and there's an area in front of us to go down, and you're going down there and taking pictures and doing whatever you're doing and seeing that. And it's funny for me because I was up there, and then like new people would come up and they'd like be talking about these two crazy guys down there, and I'm like, I won't say that I know them. I'll just stay there.
What were they saying, Kurt?
I did not know this.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, well, I didn't tell you about that. I was kind of ashamed. No, not really. And then because just before that, I think then they said, yeah, this guy earlier, he sat over on this cliff here. I'm like, same guy. But you know,
I didn't know about that. That was a little intense. Chase.
Well, you kind of did, yeah.
I will explain this really quick. There was this little part. So the cliff is basically like a straight pathway you go down for about 200 yards. It's just the top of the mountain.
Right.
And then the part we're talking about where we go down, the mountain is like straight off, like top of the mountain. Yep. And then it kind of goes off a little and starts going down. We went on the go off a little part. It wasn't too steep, nothing too big.
Yeah, not even.
But
bad.
this part is like the mountain just had like a little like cliff V basically that came off, just like a little rock that just was waiting to fall, I'm pretty sure. Chase just puts his crotch right between the little V and he has his legs sticking off of the cliff edge. The rock's like cut in half. It looks like it's gonna fall at any moment, and that was a little too intense.
And you're there for like 3 minutes or something. I hated it. I didn't want to look at you. I started taking photos for some other people to like distract myself from the fact that you're over there. I just wanted you to like stand next to me again and not think about all the worst case scenarios, because that's, and I know like you, and maybe this is a good time for you to get into some of this. Like you of all like the relatives of our family, you seem to be the most adventurous in the way like you just don't have fear in situations that I think most of us have some or a ton of hesitation. Like I'd imagine your mother or other people in the family if they even know that you did some of these things. I'm like, you'll be home safely and it'll be okay.
Yeah.
But like, I'd imagine
going through the trip, people will be
your
like, how the
mom-
hell did you make it home
I
safely?
want to reiterate it too real quick, because it's not even the fear fact. It's just like, it's borderline fear to common sense of like, should I actually do this? Like, is this safe? Because I would say I'm pretty adventurous, but Chase is like more like testing boundaries of common sense.
Yeah. And I don't think you
Like,
overdo
not
the
in a bad
boundaries, and nothing's bad's happened so far, and hopefully never will. But the boundary, you never quite know where it is, and I just stay far away enough from the boundary to make sure I don't let that one-time terrible thing happen. And I feel like you're close enough to it that it frightens me, even though you're probably not that close to it. It just, for me, it's like, don't do something stupid, Chase. I know, I want you to be you. I want you to be the independent, creative, ambitious person that you are. I don't want you to do it in front of me sometimes. And
Yeah.
I want you to live this amazing life. And so doing some of these things will keep pushing you there and get you there. I just have this fear, like at any point maybe you do something stupid and you're on the news, and I just don't want that to happen.
I guess, yeah. I mean, it's all about your comfort level. AJ, just to go back, like AJ is comfortable with a lot of stuff. Like, he's adventurous. He's searching up all these hikes for me to do, but I just like yeah. I mean, I don't like use like the common sense, but it's like that's not the point of like. It's not the point of like going to do that stuff. It's not a common thing to do. Like, common sense isn't even like in the equation. You're going there to test the boundaries. You're going there to push yourself to the limit and push whatever boundaries that are there to the limits. There's nothing common about it. So that's why I'm like, I don't like, common sense isn't in there. It's just me, my adrenaline. Like, I want to put my life on the edge and like get my heart going so fast. Like, I like feeling what that's like. That's what makes me feel alive. It's like
I just knew,
enlightening my soul.
I knew that when he went off that little edge where it was like the V, and I knew that was like pretty intense. Is when he was getting up, his leg was like shaking, like trembling it was, and I was like, okay, so Chase is freaked out now, so this means that he's actually doing something that's like, oh, should he be doing this?
Well, for me, I mean, I'm not even scared, but I got so much adrenaline going through me, like everything shakes. Like, the video quality on my videos, I think, is terrible because my hands are shaking because I'm like my adrenaline is just going through the roof because I'm just like pushing. Like, I know my life is like on edge here. If I mess up, it's over. But I love that. I love that feeling, and then I don't get scared. I don't back away from it. I go after it and I chase it down. But yeah, you see me shake because like I get like so pumped up, like I can't like control my hands are like shaking, stuff like that.
And you're one of those people that need that, maybe I shouldn't say need, but you really yearn for that adrenaline rush that makes you feel a certain way, and you go after it.
Yeah.
So I mean that's who you are, and that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And I hope that you have enough sense, even though you don't use common sense all the time. You have enough sense to not do something really stupid, and keep finding what it is to make you feel alive. Because to me, I mean, what's the point of living if you don't feel alive? You got to search for what makes you feel alive, feel good. And with you, it seems to be things that other people will find to be dangerous. Mm-hmm. So as long as you end up not really putting yourself in danger, even though outsiders perceive it as danger, then you'll be fine. But maybe that's the thing with it. You need to keep on pushing for a little more danger to feel alive then.
For sure.
Hopefully, I think the big thing that happens with that stuff is like you get into groups of people that like do more dangerous things.
Yeah.
So I think you have that little kind of personality, which is totally fine. It's just you're gonna do amazing things, but I think it's good when you hang around people that just think little things are dangerous, because I can't imagine you around people that do like extreme sports and you want to do dangerous things to them.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And the funny thing is, it's like, I mean, that's just like a part that makes me feel alive. I mean, I don't know, I can't explain it. It's just how I'm wired. But the funny thing is, like, the stuff we've talked about, that's not even the dangerous thing I did. I mean, if you guys want me to go, I got a story for you, and then like how the most dangerous thing I did
from this trip.
Yeah, it wasn't even like
Glacier.
Yeah, it was the Glacier thing I did. I don't know. Should I tell the story? Do you got time
It's
for
up
that,
to you.
Kurt?
Well,
Real
we're
quick.
running out of daylight, and we're not going to talk for 5 hours here, so we will kind of get towards the end of this. But yeah, if it's an important
Real
story
quick,
to tell.
I'll set it up because so back to the glacier hike, waterfall. We're back there. Before the waterfall, we went across the rapids, of the waterfall, going down, and then Chase just went down there. We went down there. I'm like, Chase, that's probably not a good idea to do that because he was just kind of climbing on the side of it. He was like, yeah, that's not gonna work. That's probably not gonna work. So he just leaves his backpack by me for like 15 minutes. I'm like, where did he go? Because he just ran off. So of course he's going through the woods in grizzly country.
Yep.
Without bear spray.
Yep.
No backpack. No
Nope.
nothing. Just,
Nothing.
And he runs through.
No common sense there, right?
No, there's no common sense there. Let's be honest. But then he got to the point where he was on the other side, and I'm like, okay. And then I'm off because I already took his backpack, and I was chaperoning his backpack. And I'm like, okay, Chase, come on, let's go. Let's go up to the waterfall, and then you can take it from there.
Yeah, so AJ, I find AJ eventually. I'll get back in that story. So I'm like, I got this mission. I'm like, I want to get to the other side. I want to see what's on the other side here. Like, why can't I see it? I get pissed off. I need to see everything.
There's nothing on the other side.
I'm very visual. So I got this video going, and I'm like, I didn't start until after I got across because I wanted to make a thing where I loop down and stuff on the other side of it, just to see a different perspective. I don't know. Yeah, it was dumb. Yeah. But I don't care. I did it anyways.
Real quick, I think we need to invest in Chase in his experiences because he has a cracked iPhone 7 and he's getting all this unique footage that we're not getting because we're not trying to jump off the cliffs. But
Yeah.
he just has it on an iPhone 7.
I need to start a
with, broken
GoFundMe for a
camera.
GoPro, something like that for sure. So I start off and I'm like, I gotta find this thing. I gotta get across. So I'm searching through the woods. I'm like, how am I gonna get across? I'm like, is there a way I can jump across a rock here? I'm like, nope, that's not gonna work. I find this so we were on a big log and we took a photo of that. Maybe Kurt can put it in the video here for YouTube or whatever. But I found the smaller log and I'm testing it out. I'm bouncing. I'm like, oh my god, this log is really wobbly. But I'm like, this is the only way I have across. So I'm walking on it, and it's wobbly, it's bouncing, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get on my butt and scooch across, and there's branches, so I'm fighting branches and getting across this log. There's rapids underneath. It's it's fine. I'm not scared.
This isn't even the
This isn't even the crazy part yet. I'm getting to that. Shut up. So I stand up, I get through, I'm like, whew, I got through it, it's fine, that was a little testy. I'm like, gosh, I did not feel very stable. That was a little dangerous. I sensed the danger. I'm like, all right, I love the danger, let's go. And so I'm checking through, I'm like, okay, I find it here. I get my phone out, here's the video, I'm starting the video, here's what happens. So there's a rapids that comes from a different side. So there's the waterfall that trickles down, and then there's some rapids that comes in and mixes with the waterfall, and it makes it, it's it's big, crashing, and I just wanted to see it. I don't know, I need to see it. I just had this goal where I was I need to see it. And so I go down, all of a sudden I see AJ, and AJ drops my backpack. He's like, what the heck? I'm like, I got over here, man. I'm gonna take a video.
So I had to carry his backpack up this 6-foot cliff and height, and water ball got dented.
Yeah.
It wasn't I just walked around the corner to carry his back. No, I had to take his
he was on his own trek.
And I had to throw it across the waterfall and jump around, and oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so if you find AJ, AJ's what are you doing? I'm just I gotta see this other side. I'm gonna take a video of it going down, and I'll come back. And so I take a video going down, and I'm going down and take this video of the waterfall. I'm getting in there, and in the video you can see there's a place where I jumped across, and it's an 8 or 9 foot gap between this waterfall, and it's boom, straight down. And I was I don't really want to go back on the wobbly log, so I took my chances with this. I'm I stopped the video because I didn't want to drop my phone or whatever, even though that'd been a cool video. That's where I need the GoPro to capture that.
But this is the part where the common sense
Hold on. No, let me finish. You can get the common sense later. There's tons of...
I'm at least record it. At least get this on video.
Well, I don't have the GoPro. I feel good with the GoPro, but I'm not going to do it with my crappy iPhone 7. And so I was there's no time. I'm so amped up to do this. And so I'm woo! And then I jump over, I land, I make it safely. I left with a foot of clearance. I was completely fine. Jumped over a slippery rock, waterfall, or whatever. And so I get over the slippery rock waterfall, And that's where I'm like, woo! Like, I'm like doing Indian chant, like, my heart is racing, like, I almost died, but I did it anyways. Like, I'm just like, this is so amazing. I'm like going crazy. Like, you can hear I'm so excited. That's we talk about like amp moments, like that's amp moment, power box, like.
Well, because it was either live or die, and you lived. So I guess.
My gosh, I'm getting amped up just talking about it, man. That's getting me rushed again.
On the slippery waterfall ride.
Oh, all right. So take it
I
away.
don't know.
That got me excited.
I do want you to calm down a little because I want to encourage you, but yet there's some amount of like there needs to be discretion. I think there needs to be discretion when doing these things.
Well, like he could have just walked back. He didn't have to jump over the waterfall. He could have just walked back the way he did.
Here's my. You can tell me if this is right or not, Chase. And we're running out of daylight for the video. It might not be very good for much longer, so we probably should wrap it up before too long.
Yeah.
But as I hear you tell these stories, and I witnessed you in some of these moments, just like the other day at the Capitol Reef, which we can talk about briefly. You AJ had like stopped coming on this little trail because it was kind of dumb. You and I kept going, and then we got to the end. It was stupid. It wasn't worth it. We were all kind of annoyed that we were there, and then you decided that you thought this would be a shortcut some other way, and I had to like tell you not to, and I don't like to tell you not to do things, but I feel like the energy that I would like you to put towards thinking about if it makes any sense, you're not putting towards it. So I've got to put it towards it for you, and then like get kind of upset at you because the way you went might have been faster. But how does that help us if you're there, I'm here, he's there, and we can't communicate with each other? So there's no the cost benefit reward ratio. I don't know. Besides the thrill of you being right and like the excitement, which I know you yearn for, it doesn't help anybody else. So as an independent person doing creative things, I do want to encourage you to follow your ambitions. As I'm trying to see where we got to turn here. Turn right. Okay. But I also don't. You're 18 for less than a week now as we talk. These are things that I want you to keep thinking about and learning about. How do you put all this great energy you have to great use for yourself, but also not cause problems for other people that you know and like and care about?
True. Yeah. That happened a lot of times on this trip, not gonna lie. But
Is this right?
Chase does have that energy that just not a lot of people have, and I just putting it towards like correct things is like the best thing. And there was a couple times too that I remember, like when we're at Angel's Landing, and there was a lady like, oh my God, I don't know how you can do this. Like, this is so scary. And like, and there was a point where we're waiting for them, and we're kind of on the edge, me and Chase were, and she was like, oh my gosh, it's so scary. And then Chase just decides to just put his foot over the edge, like, oh, it's not that bad. And then she like literally like looked away and like ran up, and she like almost had like a heart attack.
Yeah.
And I think that's just one of those moments, like, okay, maybe I have to think about other people because I know I'm excited, but maybe they might have a little bit of a different experience that I have to cater to.
This is a strange balance that I think we all should be aware of and work towards in life, and everyone handles it differently. Like, this podcast has helped me to care less and less and less and less about what people think in general, which has been great for me. But I don't think it's healthy to never in any situation care what other people think or what matters to them. Then you're like sociopath. I don't think that's you, but you need to find a healthy balance to really do well in the world, both get what you want and feel good about yourself, but not also like isolate yourself from other people because they don't sense that you care enough about what's good for them or what they want. So like this other one, and we didn't talk about it at the time, I'm going to talk about it now because we've had a chance to cool down. You did this cool thing. We're in Nebraska. You did this perfectly fine, cool thing if it was just the three of us. 2 minutes after AJ tried to do the same thing, he tried to hide and scare you, and then we were sprinting to get out of Capitol Reef because of the 5 state parks or national parks in Utah. It was the worst, and we shouldn't have been there, but we were there. So we're running out of there. Chase is the fastest, so he got way ahead of all of us. And then, I don't know, he hid behind some tree to get out and scare us, which is fine. Great idea. We're out there having fun. Problem is, 10 feet ahead of me was the lady said she was 71 and their husband was older, and you barely scared me, but you scared the daylights out of them, and that wasn't good.
I also
and
thought he was gonna like have a heart attack.
Yeah, so
It was
and this
insane.
is like, I don't bring this up now to like have it be a negative thing, but that's you were so focused on scaring me. Perfectly fine in most situations. Do it later tonight, I don't care. But in that moment, it just wasn't the moment, and I don't know that with your, and I say this in a very positive way because I think people that have the ability to get obsessed over ideas become really great at those things. I think in your mind, witnessing you, and this is the long way to the point I was trying to make before, you get ideas and then you get obsessed with them very quickly, like, I gotta do this. And then I think in those moments, your awareness of what's around you maybe goes away a little bit. So to be obsessed and also aware is a thing I challenge you now that you're 18 and moving into your adult life. If you can be both obsessed about things that make you feel alive with enough awareness of what's going on around you, you're going to do amazing things, and I believe they will.
Yeah, I mean, there's a sense on this trip, and I guess for me it's like there's a bunch of things I learned for me. I mean, one of those just being like, some things I just kind of have to do alone, and that's the most things where I was doing adventurous, feeling alive, is when I was by myself. Like, nobody wants to go with me, and like I talked about this with you in the car. It's like it's I feel like I'm gonna have a lot of difficulty finding just a partner in life.
I don't think so.
Who wants to do that adventure with me.
I think we'll find
I
them.
do want to stop you there, because you will not have a trouble finding a partner that wants to do that kind of stuff. And I do not think you had the funnest times when you were by yourself. I think you had the funnest times when you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm doing this right now. It wasn't that the fact that you were by yourself, it's that you were just doing it. And I think that what we're talking about is not that, it's the part that just being just more aware of just other people and their situations, and then that's just a little thing you can work on. And me and Kurt are probably better at that, but we're definitely not as good as you are at jumping across cliffs, and not even jumping across cliffs, but just testing boundaries and really like getting out there and doing stuff we're uncomfortable with. So just, we all gotta find that happy medium. Mm-hmm. It's not about isolating yourself or whatever in that sense. It's just finding happy mediums in the ways.
Right.
Yeah, you're great at many things, and some people will never sniff. Like, people will not have the ambition for the excitement and thrill of life the way you already have. A lot of people just never have that. So you got that going for you. Like, I don't know if we'll maybe spend a minute doing it. You have this ukulele you bring with you all everywhere, and you're really good at it. You get ideas, and I really think the word, you kind of obsess over getting better at it, which is totally awesome in ways that I wish I could be more obsessive sometimes about things that would really help my life. And I think I'm lost. How do I find east? Hold on.
Like, I'm adventurous, Chase, but nowhere near to what you are. And if I can have that and still have more of my awareness, like, the great things I can accomplish would just be even more. And I can get that. I just got to keep pushing myself. And I notice when I'm with you, I push myself further. And, like, even when I'm with you, I'm like, oh yeah, like, let's see if Chase wants to do this kind of thing. And then I'll, like, go out and I'll go and, like, well, Chase, come here. Then, of course, you come. But it's still like I'm like pushing myself like further, and where you even have to catch up to me sometimes. Like, yeah, you can catch up, but you still have to catch up, and like that's me pushing myself in that direction. Mm-hmm. And then just vice versa of just like, okay, these guys are aware. Maybe like, oh, what were they saying about this lady? Maybe she is a little scared, and maybe I should be like positive affirmation, like, hey, you got this, don't worry. This is like really good, instead of like leaning off the cliff like, oh, look at me, kind of thing.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways I could go about doing stuff differently for sure, and there's a lot of stuff you guys taught me on this trip of thinking through stuff a little bit more, and that's one of the things I'll have to grow into. I think it's not like it's gonna, like, when I'm doing like those adventures, it's like I'm just go, like, it's just a go mindset, and that's sometimes I'll have to change that and regress back just a little bit to make sure I'm not scaring the locals or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're not the first person to kind of have to learn these lessons to really adapt. But let's kind of go the fast version. The rest, like those were the highlights of the trip. Mostly happened there until today. I think we have one more. So after that, the same day as Zion, we went to Bryce Canyon, which is really visibly cool, and we got to go down these, I forget what they're called, but they're like this, the way that the Udus, we were able to see them from above. It's amazing, and then you go walk between them. It's like so cool. The trees that grow in there's not many, but they grow so tall in a way that's really kind of neat. Let's see here. More trying to navigate here with my phone being sideways. So we did that and stayed at another Airbnb. Next day, there's 3 more national parks remaining in the state of Utah, and we tried to do them all in one day. Right.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a late start. We drove to Capitol Reef. Capitol Reef, basically, I mean,
was a waste of time.
It was a bust. It was a bust. I mean, not every place is. It was just one of those, like, we just had such great luck of seeing the most unique things, having the most amazing adventures the whole time. And I mean, we had one bust, and it's good to put that in perspective, because our perspective was like, this would still have been cool if not everything else had been amazing. We had that perspective, which is nice to keep in mind, because like anybody else who goes to that one first would be like, wow, this Capitol Reef is pretty cool with all these petroglyphs and stuff like that. And petroglyphs are like ancient scriptures that the Native Americans inscribed in the sides of the mountains and the canyons and whatever.
And I think the main part of it is that we were trying to hit 3 national parks that day, which is we probably should not do unless you just want to see all of them, because our outcome was to see as many as we could in the given time we had and have the best experiences we could.
And it was on the way. The way we did, we took the scenic drive, which cost us about 2 hours because the drive is slow, and then we decided to do a little hike while we're there, and that was slow and not that interesting compared to the things that we'd seen.
Yeah.
So it ate about 2 hours into a day, and then we already had a late start. So finally, eventually, we got back, got going, and we didn't have much time at Canyonlands. Plus, the time of the day, the sun was really making some of the views not to be that good, in my opinion. And we finished at Arches. There's a lot of great sites there. I think to do these things well, you spend at least a day at every one of them. But if we spent a day at each one of these things, we'd have skipped a lot of them. And I think a part of the excitement and experience was making an appearance, taking the photo in front of the sign, seeing a couple of the cool things at each one, and moving on. And after the early experiences in the trip, I don't think that was such a bad thing the last few days.
Right.
To breeze through them, get a sense of them. So if we ever want to go back, we know what we'd be looking for.
Collect the maps or whatever.
Arches was beautiful.
Arches was amazing.
That was probably top 3 most beautiful park. We didn't get to spend a lot of time there. We got to see sunset. I went up and sat up on top of one of the arches. Chase came. We had a good time. I took a time lapse, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Very
beautiful. I think that was a very good day to have, because this whole trip is a senior trip. It's it's Kurt taking us on a trip to really, before we go off and do our thing. So it's great to learn lessons on this trip, just like Chase is, just like I am.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing on that trip is I think everything really worked out. I wouldn't say perfectly, but basically perfectly. The whole trip of what we wanted to do, timing-wise, everything worked out. And I think we're so used to just everything flowing and cramming stuff in and just it working out that we try to cram too much in, and it just kind of diluted some of the experiences we could have had.
Yep.
And I think that was just a really good lesson we took from that day.
Yeah, for sure.
Before we left, I called it a sampler platter of national parks, and it was that. We saw a lot of them, we got a little bit of a lot of them, and now if any one of us ever goes back in that direction, we'll know the ones that we're going to want to tell the people that we're with on that trip that, okay, let's spend our time here. This one really had these special things.
Yeah, right.
Not a bad use of like
for sure.
days.
And there's I felt like for me, I don't know if you guys sense this, but there was like definitely a winding down period where it's just like I don't know. I'm like all burnt out. Like just like can't keep pushing, you know. And I get that sometimes where it's like I just started to calm down eventually.
And I mentioned this when we were at Zion at Angel's Landing up in the top. That was the point where we'd be furthest away from home on the trip. And then from that point, we've been, and we still are as we talk. We're just making our way back towards home. The final 4 parks in Utah, they were on the way out of the state to the east. So we made an appearance in each one of them, and sure, we could have used our time a little bit differently, but we dropped into all of them, and then we stayed a night in eastern Utah. And I'll kind of just wrap up the rest of the itinerary. We went to Mesa Verde in southwestern Colorado, and that one has a lot of very unique native cliff dwellings. The way they like carved homes in villages basically into the side of the cliffs, which is really cool. We saw those from a distance because we didn't plan it that well. We didn't know that we had to get tickets, and it was too far away to get tickets. We just didn't have the time. But we saw it. We have a sense of it. If we ever went back, we'd know how to spend our time there and do some hikes there as well. Right. Then from there, your Grandma Gail, my mom, her cousin lives in western Colorado. Mm-hmm. You two, if you'd ever met him, and probably just saying hi one time, or probably never met him at all. And we were able to go there and spend time with him, and for 2.5 hours, had a really good time, I think.
Yeah, it was really fun.
So we did that, and then we kept moving. We drove through Black Canyon to the Gunnison National Park, and that was really neat, just to get some of those sunset views there. That a couple really good views. We didn't spend a lot of time there. We got a couple good photos, saw like, okay, this is why people would come here. We moved on, drove a lot. I drove through some mountains while you were sleeping. We found the town that we needed to get to for gas, and the first 2 gas stations we went to were out of gasoline, and that was frightening.
10 miles left.
Oh, but the third one had it, and I don't know what was going on. Why in this? That was was it Gunnison, I think?
Gunnison, I think.
It's just kind of in the middle of nowhere along the mountains, and they don't get gas as quickly as other places I've been to. So that was something. And we stayed one more night, and then this morning we got up. This is the thing. This is why I like to put myself in situations with other people that do things differently than me. The idea to whitewater raft, someone said it, or someone else, not our group, said it. Like someone said we could go maybe do it in Glacier to like get the ticket to go in or something. Like, I don't really want to. I was hoping we never would, but you guys wanted to do it, and I realized, okay, we're going. This is the point of the trip, is you guys want to do something, we do it. So you want to go whitewater rafting? I decided, okay, we're doing it. Let's find a good one. We found, I think, the appropriate one, class 3, with this place in Salida. I got a motel in Salida, and then we booked the thing in Salida. It all came together. We did that this morning in Colorado.
Yep.
And Brown Canyon National Monument. There's our 14th national park or monument that we happen to be at. And that I'd never done it before. It was so much fun. You guys talk about it a little bit, but I'm happy to have had that experience. Before it, I was scared. Afterwards, yes, and I'd do it again.
Right. I think it was a very good experience, and I'm sure Chase would agree that we could have gone for a little bit more, maybe a lot bit more challenging rapids, since it was just like moderate difficulty. But I think it was so awesome just seeing how happy Kurt was. Kurt hasn't been like the biggest swimmer in his life, and I think just recently he started taking swimming and like swimming lessons. I don't know.
5 years ago, but now I used to be terrified of falling into water.
Yes.
I told stories about it on the podcast. I fell into the Puget Sound, and it was really cold, and that was like kind of traumatizing, but I don't like the idea of falling into water when I'm not supposed to be going into the water. So when you guys dove into Delta Lake, that's not that exciting for me because I would be so cold and afraid that I wouldn't be able to react with my swimming. And also this, I don't want to get flipped into the water on a whitewater rafting. That sounds terrifying.
Right.
But yeah, and again, that's why it really just had a different perspective. He was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And me, the nephews, me and Chase are pushing Kurt beyond like his boundaries of like doing this stuff, and then we're having great experiences with them, and it's just a great time.
Yeah, AJ, I want you to take this one because this was your first time. I've gone before. I knew the drill, but I want you to just really recollect like the whole the rapids.
Okay, yeah.
From your
So
point
we
of view.
went on like the shuttle bus. I don't know if you ever whitewater rafted. This is how you normally do it. Went on the shuttle bus, drove down there. We had a really good guide. The main guy was the person that we had the rafting with. He was our head guy, and we got on the raft with him. Worked out perfectly. He was the right guy for us. It was really fun. We went down some rapids. I would have liked more intensity. I really liked the whitewater rafting kind of thing, but again, it was so cool seeing Kurt having so much fun, and I know that it was something he was uncomfortable with, especially in the past. And the fact that he was doing it was really fun. We kept going down the rapids through the Grand Teton National Monument, having a great time, getting wet, and me and Chase sat in the front of the boat because I was like, it was like, who wants to sit in the front? And I was like, me right away. And Chase was like, yeah, let's go. And because I knew that was going to be the best place for me to be.
Yeah.
But it was just really a fun experience.
Yeah. Just to kind of reiterate, we were with this family for a great family. The woman was what was her name? Liz was a little frightened like you, and it was kind of
Liz
cool.
was more scared than me, so then I tried to calm her down.
Right. It was like we were just paired with the right people, with the right family. That was a great group to go with. And I think just to end, kind of just to wrap up our trip, that the whitewater rafting was just such a great note to end on. I mean, we went to a Rockies game too, a little later, just have a little quick pop in, see Coors Field, which was good for me. I've never been there before. But I think more the whitewater rapids was just a good note to end on because it was just a balance was struck there, and it was just a perfect chord. Kurt was in a balance, he's in the water, it's good, pushing his limits a little bit, but not too far. Me and AJ are still having fun, even though we could have gone a little bit further, still getting wet and stuff. There's lots of different challenges you have to face in the rapids, and it was just all sorts of types of chaotic, but it was just orchestra music. I felt just all of a sudden the trip was just kind of colliding and all ending at once, and it was just a perfect way to end it. I feel with the balance between all of our comfort levels and abilities that we have. It was a good way to end it on a great balance. Yeah,
it was, and I guess this conversation is a part of the ending as well, to kind of recap these things for us, to capture it for the three of us, and for anyone else that happens to care about us or be interested in the topics, and they can know what our trip was like as we're really, and it's still in our minds. We just did all these things, even though some of them seem so long ago because they were a week ago.
Yeah.
But we're making our way back, and at this moment of the drive, we have 10 hours to go. Maybe we'll stop and sleep, maybe not. We're all hyped out. Someone will drive every part. Either way, we'll be safe. We'll arrive home, and for anyone taking in this conversation in the future, everything's good, and just really, I guess, glad to be able to take these guys on a trip like this. I took their sisters for their 18th birthday and graduation present to New York a couple years ago. Chase's sister Chloe, my niece, and I had a conversation about that for the podcast a couple of years ago. If anyone's interested to look back on that one. And this is the recap of this trip. And I don't know, the next time we'll do something like this again. Just the three of us, I don't know. Maybe at some point, maybe never again in this way. But to have had this together, I think is pretty special, and we built some bonds. We became fans of different podcasts together.
Tuesdays! Shout out to Tuesdays! Mark Norman, your list.
Tuesdays with Stories is now their favorite podcast. I'm sorry for everybody that will not quite understand that. But yeah, Mark Norman was on my podcast in the past, and so I got them into that as well in this trip.
Officially been to 37 states.
Yeah, go AJ.
Ooh.
I'll have to do an update on mine.
Yeah, me too.
I have this 100 things to do before you die scratch off poster that I got at Kohl's on my birthday a couple months ago. I did a Toastmaster speech on it. I don't think I've talked about it on the podcast, but since then I've gotten to cross off Alaska as 100 places to go on the planet, and I get to cross off Yellowstone. So we're making progress, getting to see the country, getting to see the world, and I encourage everybody else to do the same. Great memories, great lessons to be learned.
Ooh.
All right, no being wrong or personal growth segment, because I feel like we kind of went through that with some of the topics already today.
For sure.
Chase, AJ, thank you for being with me, and thanks for recording this conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Kurt.
Thank you, Kurt.